Hello everybody, welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. Of course, as always, I am your host, Charles Hamaker, here with you in studio. The end of the month of January has brought preseason for the Sounders and the Reign. The Seahawks continue to look for their new head coach. The Kraken are one game away from the NHL All-Star break, and they've been getting healthier, which is a great sign if you've been aware of what's been going on with the team over the past few weeks. The Mariners might make a move today. That's what the rumors are saying, and we'll get to that and the potential of that and what they've already done over the past week, of course. But, voice crack. But as always, we'll start with the Seahawks. And with the Seahawks, it isn't a ton of news potentially. It's just more progress towards the potential of a new head coaching hire, with the Ravens losing to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game and the Lions losing to the 49ers, unfortunately. I'm sorry, Everett. In the NFC Championship game, both Mike MacDonald, defensive coordinator of Baltimore, and Ben Johnson, offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, are now free to interview however they'd like to, as their respective seasons are over with their current teams. Ben Johnson has already met with the Seahawks once. This would be his second meeting with the team, and Mike MacDonald has not met with the Seahawks at all, despite the team having reported interest in him throughout the course of their coaching search. They haven't gotten any interviews in with him. Now they are free to do so. Washington, the Commanders, the only other vacant head coaching position in the league. There's only two now. By the time that we saw you last week, there were at least five, and now we're down to two. The Seahawks and the Commanders. Both teams are going to look at MacDonald and Johnson, and it makes sense. Johnson's done a great job with the Lions offense and what talent they've got there. Jared Goff had a really strong year. You can wonder what he could do here in Seattle with the weapons of a DK Metcalf, a Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kenneth Walker. We could go down the list, of course. On the defensive side of the ball, though, Mike MacDonald, if you're really looking to spark plug this defense, a defense that does have a ton of talent, Devon Witherspoon is a finalist for the Defensive Player of the Year award, a Defensive Rookie of the Year, award in the NFL here for his strong season. You'd look at Mike MacDonald. And obviously, continuing that, the Seahawks are without an offensive coordinator as well, as Shane Waldron has bolted for Chicago to call plays for the Bears. So there are a few different coaching dominoes that need to fall, but obviously you want to get the head coach out of the way first, and then that head coach will likely bring in their respective staff as well. So, MacDonald, if you're a defensive, a lot of the fan base has looked at MacDonald already as their head coach. They don't care about any other candidates that are out there, which there are still plenty of capable candidates to take this head coaching job. I'd still like for them to meet with Mike Vrabel. Vrabel has met with a few teams already, interviewed with the Falcons. They went with Raheem Morris, former defensive coordinator of the Rams, who I thought might end up here in Seattle personally. Dan Quinn is somebody that a lot of the fan base wanted here. I push back against that a little bit. Bill Belichick is still without a job, and it doesn't seem clear that he wants to retire quite yet. But it doesn't look like he'd necessarily be a great candidate for either of the current teams that are without a head coach at this moment. So there are more than a few capable candidates out in the NFL coaching space that could take this Seahawks job that we're looking at currently. But Johnson and MacDonald, two guys who are now free to interview, are two of the guys who a lot of folks have highest on their respective lists. So that'll be interesting to keep looking at. Again, coordinators, whether it's offensive or defensive, don't always necessarily make great head coaches. It's not, some folks aren't able to make that jump, unfortunately. So maybe you look to a Vrabel who's already done a head coaching job and has earned some respect around the league when doing so with the Tennessee Titans. So that is it for the Seahawks. Nothing else really going on in the realm of Seattle. We look at the Super Bowl, it's the Chiefs and the 49ers. So, at least for us, we're looking at the Chiefs to win that game because you don't want another Super Bowl in the division, unfortunately. And that's kind of the slow-moving parts of it. We'll eventually be looking at, free agents for the Seahawks, whether it's their current class of who's going to hit free agency. The mock drafts will slowly be loading here, and who Seattle will take at the 16th overall pick. But the head coaching job is obviously domino number one that needs to fall for Seattle in their current offseason. We look to the Mariners there, as I mentioned, there might be a rumor that there might be a deal for the team here. And then as I look here now, Ben Johnson is just about penciled in for the Commanders as their new head coach. So, Seattle still has an interview supposedly with him lined up, so that could change as well. But there's supposed to be a Mariners move that happens today. There's been speculation about it. But there was one thing that at least for sure happened in the Mariners world currently, a minor league bat in Cole Tucker. Cole Tucker has spent 4 seasons of his 5-year Major League career with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Nothing too spectacular, low 200 batting average. He only played in 5 games with the Rockies this past year and hit 500, but that's 4 hits in 8 at-bats, which, is a very small sample size. So there's something there. He is a younger infielder. He's 27, which is supposedly peak age in Major League Baseball. Not a lot there. He's played kind of a number of positions, which the Mariners do value. Obviously, you look at Dylan Moore and Sam Haggerty. They're viewed as super utility guys. Tucker playing a lot of shortstop, but can play right field and second base. The biggest news with Cole Tucker, though, is that he is married to Vanessa Hudgens. So there's that. That's been the biggest piece of news regarding him, which is unfortunate, because you'd like to view him as him, yada, yada, yada. But, that's cool, I guess. So if Cole Tucker somehow makes the Major League roster, then the Mariners have Vanessa Hudgens as a super fan. So there's that. But that's about it with the Mariners. There's this talk of a potential trade for Dylan Cease to the Chicago White Sox. Cease finished, near the top in AL Cy Young voting this past year, and that would be great to have, even more pitching to this Mariners staff. You look at, the Cy Young odds for this year came out over the past week, and the Mariners had 3 players in the top 10 of those odds, and Luis Castillo, George Kirby, and Logan Gilbert. You'd be adding another player into that with Dylan Cease. Obviously, the season has to happen, so on and so forth. There's 2 things I find wrong with any potential rumor for Dylan Cease. One, you don't need more pitching per se. You don't need to add a top-level pitcher like Dylan Cease. You've got Brian Wu and Bryce Miller that are going to continue to develop. Really encouraged with Bryce Miller adding more secondary pitches this offseason. Brian Wu has some great stuff already that he can continue to develop. I don't see any reason to move those guys and to bring in Dylan Cease, especially considering you've got Wu and Miller under club control through 2029. And Cease only has a few more years before he hits free agency. 2, you don't, again, in a different light, you don't need more pitching because you need more offense. So unless this is a package deal where somehow the Mariners get Luis Robert Jr. or maybe another potential bat in the Chicago system, there's not a lot going on with the White Sox, truthfully. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for the Mariners to go out and do that. Not a lot makes sense. I'm cautiously looking because that news could drop at any minute. As we've seen happen throughout the course of the show, we had the Eugenio Suarez, Jesse Winker deal drop in the middle of recording. It just doesn't make sense for the Mariners to add more pitching when they've struggled so much with, a lack of hitting. The pitching has been great for years. This pitching staff, this rotation, the bullpen have been rock solid. It's the hitting that's been such a struggle for this Mariners team, and everybody knows it, from the front office to the team to the fans. Everybody knows that the hitting is the issue. We don't need a Dylan Cease. That's not necessary. So I would just generally ignore that. I don't see a point in adding that. But we've been surprised by this Mariners front office before, so I could say all of that, and it could end up not mattering. I digress. Thankfully, we are, 16 days away from the Mariners pitchers and catchers reporting, so we're really close to spring training coming around. The Mariners could be making moves to add on during spring training as well. As I mentioned with the Winker and Suarez trade, that happened during spring training. There are a ton of free agents who haven't signed yet and might not sign until well into spring training. So that sort of stuff we could see take place as we move forward here. But otherwise, the Mariners relatively quiet. Outside of that, There's been news regarding their minor league affiliates. The Rainiers, the Travelers, the Aqua Sox, and the Modesto Nuts have all named their coaching staff, as well as the Dominican Summer League coaches have been named as well. But in terms of the Mariners themselves, that news, there's not much going on besides Cole Tucker signing a minor league deal and getting an invite to spring training. So there's that. There's not, as I mentioned, much going on when it comes to the Mariners themselves. Not a ton moving on in the Storm world per se, but, notice this over the past week. They did hold a free agent visit with free agent power forward Nneka Ogwumike. So Ogwumike recently announced that she would be leaving the Los Angeles Sparks in free agency. We look at the roster here. The accolades for Ogwumike: an WNBA champion, MVP, Rookie of the Year, All-Rookie Team, 8-time All-Star, All-WNBA First Team in 2016, 5-time All-Second Team, 4-time All-Defensive First Team. The list goes on. There's more. I could go on. There's a gold medal in there as well. But we look at this Storm team, and we talked last week about Joyner Holmes having a qualifying offer extended. Talked about length and versatility there at at a forward position for the Storm. Ogwumike is that and more. Being able to add her and stick her next to Ezi Magbagor down low for this Storm team, adding another true defined star alongside Jewel Lloyd, immediately puts the Storm into at least a playoff conversation. You still need to fill out the bench. The Storm are looking to add a point guard and looking to add more creative offense after their offense stalled a lot when it wasn't led by Jewel Lloyd this past year. Ogwumike really would be a lot of fun in a Storm uniform, as you can see with the photos we got on the screen. Ogwumike did visit Climate Pledge Arena. We saw Nneka. I have a fun story. We were already there at Climate Pledge Arena because the Kraken were playing. It was the 26th against the Blues, and we'll get to the Kraken section, obviously. But I was like, hey, wait a minute. That's Nneka Ogwumike. What is happening here? It happened to be the day of her free agent visit. And so, again, this could be a really big deal. Obviously, she's going to visit a few other places. She did visit Chicago already, but Seattle's going to make their own case, whether it be, with that world-class home of Climate Pledge Arena, with Inner Bay and that practice facility opening up already. Soon. I apologize. Soon. Playing alongside Jewel Lloyd, the young core that you've got of Magbagor, of Jordan Horston. We could go on, of course. There are a lot of different things that Seattle could look to persuade her for. General Manager Talisa Ray, I'm sure that was in some sort of pitch, and I'm sure they're looking to attract other free agents as well. But this would be huge, to add to the Storm lineup. It immediately adds another second star, and I would argue, again, you need to fill out the bench, of course, and you need to find that point guard, but you immediately launch yourself into the playoffs conversation, and you've got the 4th overall pick in this year's draft to add on to that as well. So that's what happened in Storm news. Outside of that, there's not much going on as well. Free agency has kind of dragged on. We're into free agent visits and all that sort of thing, but there's not a ton going on outside of that. The draft is still a little bit of ways out, and the team's training facility is getting closer. They're doing some court installation at the current moment, but that's what we've got when it comes to the Storm. When it comes to the Sounders here, we talked about it last week. It was rumored. We thought, hey, it should be happening right before the team heads off to Spain. And it did. The signing of Pedro de La Vega was made official. The Sounders signed the Argentinian forward as he could play a multiple different positions, so we'll look at him as an attacker. The 22-year-old, yes, Pedro and I are the same age, which is a little bizarre, was signed from Club Atlético Lanús of Argentine top flight. He tallied 17 goals and 14 assists over the course of 5 seasons. He becomes the first young designated player signing in the club's history and was announced on the 24th last week as the club's major announcement. He joins the club on a 4-year deal with a club option for 2028, pending the receipt of his P1 visa and international transfer certificate. So he then now occupies a young designated player slot, joining fellow designated players Raul Ruiz-Diaz and Albert Rusnak on the roster. He becomes the club's first young designated player ever, and the 17th overall designated player signed by the club since they joined MLS in 2009. So, a lot of excitement with Pedro de La Vega here. Had a really nice bounce back in 2023 after after suffering a big injury in 2022. There was a lot of European interest. Man City was reported looking at him for a while, a bunch of European clubs. After that injury, the interest was gone, and the Sounders were ultimately able to swoop in, and now you've got De La Vega. So it creates an interesting thing here. Where does he fit in with this attack? Not going to go up top with a 9, I don't imagine. How are you going to fit this attack? So that's a good problem for the Sounders to have. We talked about it through the course of this past Sounders season, and even the Sounders season before that, mainly the second half of that year, how much the team struggled to finish their chances and even at times generate chances, to be able to change a draw to a win or a loss to a draw or a potential win. So big for that news to finally be announced, and for Pedro de La Vega to join the team as they're now in Marbella, Spain, getting in their preseason work right now, the team bonding, building up that attack and that focus on the offensive end. Veteran forward Jordan Morris did say that the emphasis this preseason was going to be on building the attack and working on improving upon that. So there was that. There was also this leak, and I'll show you this here, and we'll put it on your screen. There was a leak, the video game EAFC, it's the soccer video game that comes out every year, leaked a bunch of MLS kits that are reportedly going to show up this year, 2024. It's a pretty credible case considering that they're in the video game that is the home of all of these leagues, MLS, La Liga, the Premier League, all sorts of that. And a bunch of the MLS kits leaked, and you can see on your screen what this year's home Sounders kit will look like. With it being the 50th year in the club's history, obviously it's a big opportunity for a bunch of different things, and obviously for a new jersey. The pinstripes is interesting. I don't know if I would have gone with pinstripes. This is a low-resolution pick off of a video game, so we're not sure how it'll look in person as of yet. There could also be the possibility that this isn't it, and maybe EFC is throwing us for a loop. I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibility, but if this is, in fact, what the club is going for, it's interesting. I'm not going to make any sort of judgment on the kit before you can see it in person and see what it looks like up close, see the details of it, the finer details, have the club announce it. I'm not going to worry about that until then. But it's interesting. I'm not really much of a big pinstripes guy myself, whether that be because of the Yankees or some other sort of reason. But it's interesting. Again, I'm going to hold off any sort of real judgment on that until we're able to see it in person, see the closer details, see the finer details, and worry about that at a later point in time. So the club is in Spain, as I mentioned earlier. They've got their respective preseason going on right now. We've seen a few pictures of it. There's the team building aspect. There's the bonding aspect, which is great and exciting for them. This is a club that's still got a lot of veteran leadership in it. They're looking to go ahead and get back to MLS Cup. That's the goal. You haven't won a trophy in a few years. There's obviously CCL, but, you'd like to get back to winning your league and winning trophies. You failed in the U.S. Open Cup as well, so you'd like to move forward with that and maybe add a few new players. There's a move that wasn't quite official yet that we'll get to next week if it gets made official. So I don't know. Otherwise, the Pedro de La Vega move is very exciting to see that take place, to finally have that after Craig Weibel, general manager Craig Weibel, called it the worst kept secret in Seattle sports. So it's finally nice to have that officially made clear, made official, and get that on the books. We move over here to the Kraken and look at that. They're nothing if they're not consistent, and that changed a little bit here. The Kraken had gone on a losing streak after their 9-game winning streak. We talked about that and the struggles there, the injury issues. Finally, the team is getting back to healthy, and there was a move made today that signaled further health for the team as well. We start here with January 24th. The team beat the Chicago Blackhawks in the second game of a 4-game homestand by a score of 6-2. This was a nice win to go out there, dominate a team that you were expected to dominate on paper, handle your business, get in the win column, and as well as bring in a few former guys as well back to Seattle in Colin Blackwell, Ryan Donato, Jacob Megna, and then former Seattle Thunderbird Kevin Korchinski, all with Chicago now to come here and play that game as well. Our player of the game for Jared McCann, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, 3 plus minus, and 3 shots on the day. January 26th, after that win, this one was a big game considering that the St. Louis Blues sit ahead of the Kraken in the wild card standings. You would like to obviously continue to stack wins as you move towards the All-Star break and in general as you look to climb up higher in the standings. But also when it's a team that's in your way and directly in your way of a wild card spot, you'd like to handle that. Seattle looked like they were going to do so. They were up by a score of 3-1. They let St. Louis score the last 3 unanswered goals of the game, including the winner in overtime, and the Kraken fall. They get the 1 point in the standings because it's an overtime loss, but ultimately it's frustrating because you didn't get both of them, and it was in your grasp. You had the 2-goal lead, wasn't able to take care of that and finish that off. Our player of the game forward, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Seattle's all-star, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, 1 plus minus, and 5 shots on the day. We go over here to the final game of the homestand, the 4th and final game, and the second to last game ahead of the NHL's All-Star break. January 28th versus the Columbus Blue Jackets, a 4-2 win. This one, another one that Seattle should have handled pretty easily on paper. You know, Columbus has struggled throughout the course of the year. They're still sort of kind of going through a rebuild. They've got a lot of young talent on this roster. Seattle scored 3 goals in the first period. They looked like they were going to roll it. Second period was a little bit weird, a little bit sloppy. Weren't able to do a lot. We get to the third period, same thing. Very sloppy. Couldn't add on to it. Columbus scored the next 2 goals to really make it a tight one. But thanks to a few blocked shots, Yanni Gourde got in on it. Joey Decord made great saves down the stretch. Seattle was able to get the empty net goal by Brandon Tanev and put the stamp on this one to get the 2 points and close out the homestand with a win. Our player of the game for Jordan Eberle-Ebbs, 2 goals, 1 assist, and 3 points on the day, contributing on 3 of Seattle's 4 goals on the night, a 1 plus minus, and 3 shots. So nice to close out the homestand with a win. A little bit more stressful than it needed to be. We'll talk about that here in a second, but just happy to be able to get the win, of course, and now you focus on your next game down in San Jose. We move over here, before we discuss that, to our player of the week. Oliver Bjorkstrand is who I went with. Joey didn't have the greatest week over the past 3 games, per se. In the games against St. Louis and then in Columbus, looked a little bit tired on some of the goals that those teams scored, so it'll be nice when the All-Star break approaches. I would imagine that Philip Grubauer starts tomorrow against San Jose, but that's not a definite considering Dave Hackstall. But regardless of that, regardless of how the team decides to go with the goaltenders, the All-Star break will be a big help for this team to get even more healthy, get some rest, and move forward there. Looking back at our player of the week with Bjorkstrand, over the past 3 games, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points, 1 hit, and 1 block for the All-Star. Even when it isn't recording stats like goals or assists, Bjorkstrand making an impact for this team and really showing why he's been so valuable and earning his first All-Star appearance this year. We look at this Kraken team and, you know, again, getting healthy is a big thing. That's really nice. You see some of the defensive structure has been there. You know, you're getting some improvement from the power play. You get 2 of your 3 goals last night against Columbus on the man advantage. Getting healthy is such a big thing. You know, there's a roster move that we'll get to in a second that alludes to even more health and the team being fully healthy. And I say that with air quotes because you never know. Some guys are battling things on the side and aren't going to mention it. But that's been such a big thing because you talk about this roster, you talk about where they are, and some folks have been looking towards what they need with the trade. The front office really hasn't seen this team to its full degree as they envisioned it this offseason because of the injuries. You know, Brandon Tanev gets hurt early on. Andrei Burakovsky goes out for a while with an injury. Jaden Schwartz was out. Jordan Eberle was out. You know, there were so many things that happened. There was the illness over the road trip as well that took place. So there's so many things that this team's been hit with in the first half of the season, ahead of the All-Star break. that you really haven't seen a fully healthy 2023-24 Kraken roster. And that's fine now because you're getting healthier, you're getting better. The one thing that I wanted to talk about and alluding towards it, with the overtime loss to St. Louis and then this Columbus game, the team has been failing to hold on to leads. And that isn't something new. There was a 2-goal curse that happened earlier in the year. But you really need to be able to close these games out. Especially when you look at games against the St. Louis Blues. That's a team ahead of you in the standings, a team that's holding a wild card spot right now that you want. You need to be able to finish that, move that ahead of them, and be able to hold that over their head in case we need the head-to-head standings, in case you need the tiebreaker when we get to the playoffs, when we get to, those late games in the year where you might need to start stacking up points and calculating how you need to get into the playoffs. So, just some sloppy hockey in the second and third periods of this game last night against Columbus. Not really the best chances on goal against Daniil Tarasov after he looked really shaky early on. The bad chances that you put on goal ultimately helped him get locked in. And that St. Louis game, again, you go up by 2 goals and just some turnovers. And it was the same with Columbus. Turnovers and, a lack of hustle, a lack of, the sense of urgency wasn't fully there to close out these games, put the final nail in the coffin, however you want to put it, right? So feeling good, feeling better about it, feeling better about being healthy, but knowing that, hey, you got the win, at least looking at last night, you got the win. Or if you look at St. Louis, you got 1 point. But you can be better, and you need to be better when we get to some of these other games on the road. I know in the month of March you're going to play Vegas late into the month, and that's going to be about the time when you want to start clinching a playoff berth. So, be happy with the points. You got the nice homestand, you got the break coming up, but understand that you're going to need to be better moving forward. And that'll help as you're getting healthy, and we'll talk about that now. On the 23rd of January, the team activated goaltender Philip Grubauer off of injured reserve, and then thus reassigned goaltender Chris Drieger back to AHL Coachella Valley, with Matty Beniers coming healthy as well after he had been dealing with an upper body injury over the last few games. On January 25th, the team reassigned forward John Hayden to the Coachella Valley Firebirds as well. Today, forward Devin Shore was placed on waivers with the intent to reassign him to the Coachella Valley Firebirds, as it appears that forward Pierre-Edouard Bellemare will be healthy and can return to the team, especially given the break. This is a move that, whether Shore is claimed off of waivers or ultimately goes back down to Coachella Valley, will help the team out salary cap wise. And with the long break, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare should be able to join the team as well. So then you'd have 2 forwards who you could scratch, which is unfortunate for them not playing, but it means that this team is finally fully healthy once again. It would be 1 forward. Yes, it would be 1 forward. It would be Yamamoto. Sorry about that. Bellemare did practice with the team during morning skate yesterday. Full practice participation is assigned in his return. Over the weekend, he had been practicing on his own and getting some more work in. So, again, I imagine with the 1 game against San Jose tomorrow and then the break, the thought is put Shore on waivers, send him back down to the Firebirds, and then you can have Bellemare back from injured reserve and ready to go. That's about it when it comes to Kraken-related news. The team sits at a 21-win, 18-loss, 9-overtime loss record, which is good for 5th in the Pacific Division, sitting at 52 points. They're 2 points out of the final wildcard spot. Their next game, as I mentioned, is tomorrow, Tuesday, January 30th, at the San Jose Sharks. That's a 7:30 p.m. puck drop. I'm not sure why it's so late, considering we're still in the West Coast time zone. The All-Star break will follow this. The team doesn't play again until February 10th. They will return from the break on February 7th, get some practice days in, and then get to their next game on the 10th. So a nice break there. Oliver Bjorkstrand, obviously, the team's all-star representative in Toronto. Otherwise, the other guys, get a nice break. We move over here to the Reign, the Seattle Reign FC. It's still nice to be able to look at the Valkyrie, at the Queen emblem and logo for this club, and know that we're back to that era, or in a new era per se, of having that crest. So it was a busy week for the Reign over the past season. There were rumors of things, and then they were confirmed, starting off with the signing of midfielder Ji So-yeon. Ji So-yeon is a South Korean midfielder. She signs through the year, this was 2025 season, I apologize, for an agreed-upon transfer fee to Suwon FC. She will join the Reign for preseason following the receipt of her visa. She joins the Reign from Suwon FC in the WK League, which is the highest ranking level women's league in South Korea. She joined that team in 2022 after leaving Chelsea and helping Chelsea win a number of trophies. Spent 8 seasons there, arriving in 2014 as the first South Korean player to play in the FA Women's Super League. That season, back in 2014, she was named the league's Player of the Year and the PFA Players Player of the Year, winning multiple trophies. She's viewed as a creative midfielder that went on to make history as the first non-British player to reach 100 and then 200 league appearances in the WSL, totaling 210 appearances and scoring 68 goals across all competition with Chelsea, helping them win 13 major titles. So in a lot of ways, this is viewed as the replacement for Rose Lavelle. That's nice to see. Obviously, a lot of people really concerned with Rose Lavelle leaving and replacing that, finding that creative attack like the Sounders we talked about with the Reign. So many opportunities for them to win games, turn draws into wins, turn losses into draws, so on and so forth. So you're adding somebody here who's a veteran, who's well regarded, who knows how to win. So that'll be exciting. That's a big move there. The Reign are still expected to add another international signing as well, in addition to Ji So-yeon, per our sources. So we'll get to that, of course, when that happens. But preseason's underway. That might not happen until the summer window happens. And, there's obviously, even with Ji So-yeon, there's the visa that you have to worry about. So we'll look to that at a different point in time. But there's that announcement. We go from that. As I mentioned, there's a ton of stuff that happened over the course of the past week for the Reign. Just the day of the Ji So-yeon announcement, there was rumor of a trade, and it became official. The Reign sent away defender Sam Hyatt in a deal, which is unfortunate. I was a big fan of Sam. Defender Sam Hyatt goes to Gotham FC in a 3-team deal. So there's the Reign, Gotham, and then Racing Louisville. The Reign send Sam Hyatt to Gotham. Louisville just gets some allocation money. That would be $60,000 in allocation money, while the Reign receive Julia Lester, who is a 24-year-old defender, and $20,000 in allocation money. You'll learn about Lester here. We'll go. Lester enters her 3rd year in the NWSL, having spent her first 2 seasons with Racing Louisville as a center back and some outside back. So there's some versatility there that head coach Laura Harvey likes seeing. I mean, we saw it with Phoebe McClernand as well. Lou Barnes has moved around the back line as well. She entered the league back in 2022, starting in 30 of 33 games played for Louisville, earning the 5th most starts for the club in that time. As I apologize, she was 26 years old. So there's some success there for Lester as a defender. The Reign likely have their back 4 figured out already, but you are in a depth defender and maybe somebody who will take over when Lou Barnes ultimately decides to hang it up. We look at this deal and it's frustrating because I've got some further detail on why this trade happened. We look at the draft. A lot of folks we were expecting Sam Hyatt to get taken in the expansion draft by Bay FC, be closer to where she played college at Stanford. That didn't end up happening, and we find out later that the Reign did make a trade with Bay so that they would not select Sam Hyatt. It seemed like Sam Hyatt was going to be the eventual successor for Lou Barnes at that position when Barnes decides to hang it up. Something seems to have changed upon that line, and now Hyatt has ended up with Gotham, joining former teammates Rose Lavelle and Emily Sonnet there in New York, New Jersey. So, yeah, unfortunate. Sam Hyatt was a fan favorite. She was a local, and she was a really strong defender here. Ultimately, didn't work out. And now Julia Lester is here, so we're happy with that. And we have to continue with the news because, again, there's a lot that happened for the Reign over the course of the past week. We look at that. The club did name their technical staff for this year. There were some thoughts about whether or not Scott Parkinson would be back. I was wondering if Scott would be back. He's officially back, and we've got more than a few coaches named here. So we'll look at that just because even at the end of the season, And through the offseason, the Reign have said that they were looking to add new hires to their coaching staff, as the league progresses and as the Reign look to gain an edge. So, obviously, excuse me, Laura Harvey returns here. Head assistant coach Scott Parkinson and assistant coach Kate Norton returned to the staff for a second consecutive season. So joining the staff is assistant coach and head of goalkeeping Lloyd Yaxley, who most recently spent 2 seasons with the Kansas City Current as their goalkeeper coach. There's that. The Reign have also hired medical director Emily Fortunato and high performance director Michael Minthorn. So again, as I talked about, there was going to be a few different new hires for the club, which is important. And you're looking to make this club better all around, whether it's mentally, physically, analytically, finding different ways to improve upon the club, not just on the field, but with the staff as well. We look at this, you're seeing it already on your screen, but we'll look at the full list of the technical staff. Leslie Galmore remains the general manager. Associate general manager is Santiago Gallo. Laura Harvey, the head coach. Head assistant coach Scott Parkinson. Assistant coach Kate Norton. We've talked about Yaxley. Video analyst is Kevin Pineda. Head performance director Michael Minthorn. Sports dietitian Bethany Chapman. Medical director Emily Fortunato, as we just mentioned. And I believe those are the new ones. We could go all the way down the list here. But if we're counting here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There's at least 20 staff members for the Reign. So again, you join you back here. The Reign are making the conscious effort to not only improve on the playing field, but also with their staff, improving the players that you've got and getting the most out of them. Again, whether it's mentally, physically, tactically, all that sort of thing. So that's impressive to see. In addition to that, we found out that the Reign, as you can see on your screen now, will be playing a few preseason friendlies when they're on the road here down in Costa Rica, which is exciting to know. We talked about it last week with the club holding their preseason in California and Costa Rica, but they will be playing 2 friendlies while they're on the road there. They'll play Liga Deportiva Alajuelense on Saturday, February 3rd at 5 o'clock Pacific time, followed by a second friendly against the Costa Rica women's national team on Friday, February 9th at 6 o'clock. So Costa Rica women's national team, that's not any sort of small friendly. So it'll be nice for them, obviously, to get some practice in there. It'll be interesting to see who gets the minutes. There are a few players who you figure have some set roles with this team. Obviously, you want to earn everything, but there are some players who likely have spots solidified more than others. And it'll be interesting to see who the Reign get into these friendlies in Costa Rica. In mentioning those different spots being potentially held up, the Reign did announce their 2024 NWSL preseason roster. So we'll put that on your screen now. The club roster is set at 26 players for this preseason, 20 of them who are currently under contract for 2024. 18 of them were rostered last year to help them reach the NWSL championship. A few of the players are still on loan. Jimena Lopez and midfielder Luani are still in League F, the top-tier women's football league in Spain, through the course of June, so they won't be coming back to join the Reign as they continue with their respective loans and continue to develop there. The club did invite a few players as non-roster invitations to join the club. For the preseason, forward Gianna Gorley, Juju Harris, and Emery Adames are all non-roster invitees for preseason camp. So all forwards. The Reign obviously feeling strong about their defensive side of the football. And that's football, not American football. And looking to improve offensively, as we've talked about at the beginning of the Reign segment. They will also welcome all 3 of their unsigned draft picks to training, whether it's Sam Meza, Maddie Mercado, and local McKenna Carr. So at least looking at the breakdown, Claudia Dickey, Laurel Ivory, and Maya Perez round out the goalkeepers position. They're all signed through 24, at least. Defending, Lou Barnes, Ryan Brown, McKenna Carr, Alana Cook, Shea Holmes, Sofia Huerta, Julia Lester, Jimena Lopez, who is, as I mentioned, on loan, and Phoebe McClernand round out the defenders. In the midfield, we've got 8 players there: Olivia Athens, Jess Fishlock, Luani, as I mentioned, on loan, Sam Meza, Quinn, Jisoo Yun, Nikki Stanton, and Olivia Vanderyacht. And then at the forward position, 8 forwards, Emery Adames, Bethany Balser, Gianna Gorley, Juju Harris, Jordan Heidema, Ziara King, Veronica Latsko, and Maddie Mercado. So catch your breath there. A lot of rain news taking place over the past week, and that's not everything there. Finally, to drop it, to close out the rain segment, the club did finally announce, well, it was more the league announcing it because the club doesn't necessarily have any control over it. The club announced their 2024 schedule, So we finally have that. We'll put that on your screen there so that you can get a better overall look at that and the schedule there. It's nice to finally have that set so that we can plan it out. We can look at that. It consists of 26 regular season matches, an even split 13 at home, 13 on the road. Earlier in the year, in the offseason, there was the announcement of the league's landmark 4-year domestic media rights agreements with CBS Sports, ESPN, Prime Video, and Scripps Sports that will see 121 matches, including 113 of them in the regular season, featured on national platforms throughout the course of the year. The rain, as you can see on your screen, will begin at home, which is nice. You know, the past few years it feels like they've been on the road. But they will continue to begin the year against the Washington Spirit, March 17th at 3 o'clock at Lumen Field against the Washington Spirit. Kind of getting sick of beginning the season against Washington. Such a good team, such a good club, such a competitive contest whenever those two teams meet. It's just a tough team to play. And it seems like we play the Spirit every year to begin the season. After the home opener, the Rain will be on the road for 3 consecutive matches, which is big. You know, with the league expanded playoff format in 2024, 8 clubs will qualify for the quarterfinal round taking place the weekend of November 9th through 10th. The semifinal round will kick off November 16th through 17th ahead of the championship game taking place on November 20th. Hopefully on the November 23rd. Hopefully on the 23rd, I am busy and I have to go to that, but we'll see. We look at the schedule breakdown here. You can still see that at least home matches broken down by days of the week. There's only 1 game on a Monday, which is nice. You know, dealing with recording these shows on Monday and then going down to Lumen is a busy time. 1 on Wednesday, 3 on Friday, and 8 on Sunday. Same thing, matches by day of the week, but by road games, 3 on Friday, 6 on Saturday, and 4 on Sunday, which is nice. It's pretty even. I talked about the even split of the 13 home games and 13 road games. Home matches by month, there's only 1 in the months of March, April, July, August, 3 in May, so that's your busiest home month, 2 in June, 2 in September, and 2 in October. And then on the road, very even as well. 2 in the months of March, April, May, June, and September, and then only 1 in August, October, and November. So nice to finally get the schedule out of the way. Every year it feels like that's the major issue, is waiting for the schedule, but we've got that taken care of. That's out of the way. It was a busy week for the Rain. Oh, my head hurts a little bit. So at least wrapping up the Rain, there's the news of Ji So-yun. There was the preseason roster. There's the technical staff. There's the preseason friendlies. There's the Sam Hyatt trade. And then there's the schedule. It's a lot, man. It's a lot. Looking at the totality of this past week, I mean, the Seahawks, again, meeting with Mike MacDonald and Ben Johnson, but there's rumors that Ben Johnson already might be locked in to the Washington Commanders deal. The Mariners, as far as I know, no big news is dropped with that, even though there was rumor of it. I want to hold my tongue because that might have happened. Nope. Oh, well, and then Mike MacDonald's going to meet in person with the Seahawks. So that's sort of a development there. But obviously, with his season being done now and we're in the part of the offseason where that can happen, that makes some sense. The Storm, hosting Nneka Ogwumike for that free agent visit. Would love to have that happen. Nneka, you look great in storm green and yellow, and especially the black jerseys. Hey, just saying. We can make it happen. We look at the Sounders there in their preseason in Spain. The Pedro de La Vega signing is official. We've got that out of the way, and it's exciting to look forward to 2024. We can see him on the pitch. The Kraken, they've got one game left before the NHL All-Star break, so you'll want to finish that off right. Tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. against the Sharks down in San Jose. You want to finish that out right. San Jose has won 3 of the last 4, so it's it's not an easy contest to go out and finalize the last game against the break against, and then the Reign. Just talked about it. An incredibly busy week. So until we see you next week, take care of yourselves. Be well. We'll see you in February, and do whatever you can to make today a great day.